And what is up, everybody? It took a little while for this thing to get started. So, all right. Marine Corps birthday is over. Veterans Day is over. But this weekend, November the 15th, 2014, has to be the biggest night in mixed martial arts history. Seriously. Not because of UFC's headliner, but because of the fact that you got UFC, Bellator, and World Series having big events all in the same night. It's just ridiculous. UFC, first off, you got Verdum versus Hunt. Now, huge Mark Hunt fan. Been a Mark Hunt fan since since he was in K1. When he made the transition to MMA, I wasn't sure how I was gonna do. But he was the first person to beat Vanderlei Silva in the 5 years that Vanderlei was undefeated. Laid waste to a lot of very very tough dudes in Pride. Had a bit of a bad spell, but then pretty big losing streak. But then comes back and pretty much reinvented himself. His ground game has greatly improved. His knockout power is just as I can't explain. It's just as powerful, it's just as hard as it ever has been. Fabricio Verdum was a UFC washout, plain and simple. The only reason why he's back in UFC is because Zuffa bought out Strikeforce. So with that came his contract. Fabricio Verdum, after having beaten, I forget who he's beaten, but on top of Fedor Emelianenko. And I don't even know who he beat to get the #1 contender spot, really. I mean, it's ridiculous. Because unfortunately, UFC books it books too many events, and I don't even have a cable box in my house. I don't even have a cable box in my house. A majority of the time when I go to watch the fights, I have to go out to watch them. So I don't even know half the time who beat who's fighting who. But obviously this is a very 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 big event, and if Mark Hunt took this on very very short notice, didn't really have enough time to train, and he knows that. So if he loses, it's an account to that. But he knows that he's never going to get this chance again. Dana White, the Fertitta brothers, first off, they tried paying him off so he wouldn't have to fight with UFC. They still had, one of the organizations they bought out. He was contracted to, I think it was Pride, as a matter of fact. He was still contracted to fight with UFC. They offered to pay him out. He said no. And he's like, no, I want to fight. And obviously, he's been doing a great job, but he's old. He's 40. And Randy Couture was the exception to the rule. That was it. Even though the beating that he gave Bigfoot Silva, even though that fight ended in the draw when they tested this guy positive for excessive amounts of testosterone, when they tested Bigfoot positive for that, they should have just given the victory to him and made him #1 contender. Instead, it went to Verdum. He had to fight. He had to fight Roy Nelson. Knocked out Roy Nelson, and now all of a sudden he gets his title shot. I don't think that's fair, but I understand completely why he says yes. I'm going to take it. Verdum could tie him up, could submit him, could possibly get a TKO on him. Granted, Mark Hunt could take a beating, as you've seen in many of his fights, especially his fight against Bigfoot. That was ridiculous. He's got a chin like granite. He's never actually been knocked out. TKOs, he's never been knocked out cold. Unlike, I'm pretty sure Verdum had. I think Verdum probably has. And Cain Velasquez has. I want Mark Hunt to win. I want him to win, no ifs, ands, or buts. I hope he wins, and wins in a devastating fashion. Because, like I said, he's never going to get this chance again. It's going to force them to have to renew his contract so he could get a couple of more fights. That way, he could actually, he could actually earn a living. But also because even though it is the interim heavyweight title, it doesn't necessarily matter. He will go down in history as a UFC champion. It won't say, it's like they'll say former UFC heavyweight champion, because they don't say, Frank Mir is the former interim and former heavyweight champion. No, they say former two-time champion. They don't say Big Nog is former former UFC interim. No, they say he's the only man to hold both Pride and UFC heavyweight titles. And he will be the only K1 Grand Prix winner to win a UFC title if he wins this Saturday. And as a fellow brother in Christ, it says Jesus didn't tap. For those of you who can't read backwards, Jesus never tapped out. This is a parody. This is actually just a parody, not affiliated with Jesus Didn't Tap, a company clothing line made for and owned by Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger. JDF, man, we got some business to discuss. Then, of course, Bellator. Stephan Bonner versus Tito Ortiz. That's going to be interesting because I have no idea who could win. I don't. Granted, Tito Ortiz is much older, and Stephan Bonner is, much more well-rounded than Tito ever has been. But at the same time, Tito could hurt Stephan Bonner pretty bad. I don't know when was the last time Stephan Bonner fought outside of getting knocked out by Anderson Silva. We'll see. King Mo's also on that card, fighting somebody who I've never heard of. King Mo's probably going to win. And I was like, who cares? Majority of people don't like King Mo except for the idiot that tried defending King Mo. He tried to say that, when he fought Rampage, that, the floor was too slippery. Yeah, the mat was too slippery. It's like, well, Rampage found his footing fine. You mean to tell me that the mat was scientifically treated so that only King Mo would slip on it? Wow. It was the dumbest excuse. It was absolutely the dumbest excuse ever. And whoever posted that, I hope you're watching this one because you're a moron. But he's good just fighting another nobody, and he's probably gonna win that. Okay, he's the king. He's the king of the guys who aren't necessarily considered real world elite yet. He hasn't fought anybody world elite tough yet, and I would love to see him fight Tito. That would be interesting to see how that goes. Then you got World Series. These upstarts, I have no idea why on earth they're going to call themselves the World Series of Fighting, and they just got started. UFC's been around far longer than they have. Bellator's been around a lot longer than they have. All these other organizations that were top of the line, that were A-list, have come and gone, and then just because they're on MSNBC, we're the World Series. You have a bunch of nobodies on your card, man. I mean, hell, Josh Berkman, I was really hoping he would win the welterweight belt, but he got choked out, unfortunately. John Fitch is on there, he should have been, the fight between him and Josh Berkman should have been for a title fight, but lo and behold, Josh Berkman avenges his loss against him from UFC and chokes him out. The only person I even know on this fight card is Melvin Gillard. That's it. Melvin Gillard, a UFC washout. He's a great wrestler, great striker, nasty power in both hands. But I have no idea who this lightweight guy he's fighting. All I know is that dude beat the kid with the one arm. Congratulations, you beat a gimmick. Nothing against the kid with the one arm, because I know he fought an MMA tournament and won that lightweight title. Good on you, man. And you did it for a friend of yours who's a military service member. So much respect. Me myself being a combat veteran, so much respect to you. But at the same time, your handicap became other people's handicap, because nobody knew how to fight somebody with only one arm. Because when you could grab the other arm and there's nothing there to grab, it was weird. People aren't used to it. But pretty soon, people started to figure out your handicap, and it was no longer an advantage for. It's no longer going to be an advantage for you. The same thing with Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell, when he would fight, people always complained about those wide looping punches that he throws, but because he studied, he's a black belt in Hawaiian Kempo, and that's what, and that's more or less how they fight. Now, granted, yeah, he was throwing these looping punches, but what people didn't seem to realize is that they were laser accurate. They hit their targets, and he knocked out almost everybody. Knocked out Randy Couture twice. Beat the snot out of Jeremy Horn their second time around. Knocks out Renato Sobral. Knocked out Tito Ortiz twice. Knocked out Vernon White. Knocked out Kevin Randleman. Knocked out Alistair Overeem in Pride. Then runs into a brick wall by the name of Quentin Rampage Jackson. Quentin Jackson, because everybody else is blocking orthodox, kind of like or like trying to parry and stuff like that, and his punches are getting around. Rampage was the only person smart enough to block like this. And when you block like this, doesn't matter how many times that punch loops around, it's not going to connect, because you got all this protecting everything. So that's your jaw, that's your temple. Those are the premier knockout points. The chin, right there, here, right behind the ear as well. All of that stays completely covered, and you can't do nothing about it. And after that, unfortunately, after that second loss to Rampage, Chuck unfortunately wasn't able to pick himself back up after that. And this kid with the one arm, once people have exploited your figure out how to get get past your little handicap advantage, it's not going to be good for you. I'm sorry, man. It was great that you did what you did. It shows that if anything, it inspires people, to do that. But unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do it for very long. I'm sorry, man. Love you to death, man. Much respect, but let's be perfectly honest. I understand you want to. I absolutely don't blame you. Just ride it till the wheels fall off. I absolutely don't blame you, but it's going to be a short ride. I'm sorry. Then you got well, actually no, that's pretty much it. Like I said, biggest night in MMA history. And none of these shows, I'm not going to be able to watch any of these shows, because this Saturday, the 15th, this little spot in Brooklyn, I got one of my junior students, Mr. Kelvin Francisco. This kid, he came to train under myself and my trainer, because he wanted to be a pro fighter. My trainer had absolutely no connections, but he's like, oh yeah, we'll get you. And he's like, we'll get you a fight. But he didn't know anybody. He didn't know any pro fighters. He didn't know any promoters. He didn't know any managers or anything like that. But this kid, he competed in jiu-jitsu. Won a few medals. And he's been ready for a while. And what happened was, he runs into a college buddy at one of the tournaments that I had to coach him in. And runs into a college buddy, and this kid has his first fight coming up, and he trains in Queens. So now, my boy Kelvin, God bless him, he's got his first fight this Saturday, and I'm going to see him. It's going to be an amateur bout. This is in New York State. Mixed martial arts is not sanctioned in New York. However, there's loopholes around it that you could actually fight amateur bouts, and the rules are slightly different. I'm not exactly sure what it is. The guy he's going up against is much older than him, but a dangerous Muay Thai guy, from what I hear. But you know, I've seen him for the first time in a long time. He's very lean. You know, he's very lean, and he's ready. He's been ready. And if he wins this, then his new coaches are going to take him. Pro. He'll be fighting in New Jersey because that's more closer, and he will be a champion somewhere. I don't know if it's UFC, but he could definitely make a career out of this. And more power to him. And you know, that's what I'm gonna be watching this weekend. For those of you in the Brooklyn area, I strongly recommend coming out to see this. I forget the name of this place. All I know is it's in Canarsie. Some Brooklyn boxing something in Canarsie. It's on the tickets. I don't know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm rooting for Mark Hunt. If he wins, awesome. If not, God bless you, man. You did your best. You gave it a good run. Tito Ortiz versus Stephen Bonner. No idea who could possibly win that one. I know King Mo's going to win this fight because it's just he's just going to trounce another nobody. Then, of course, Melvin Gillard. Melvin Gillard's probably going to beat whoever this is in the other two title fights that they have. There's one women's title and some other weight class. I think maybe their middleweight belt. No idea who any of these guys are. So, yeah. You know, that's what that is. As far as who's going to win out this weekend, UFC, no ifs, ands, or buts. Close second will probably be Bellator. But then again, even you know, UFC's preliminary shows get higher ratings than Bellator's main shows. So yeah, we'll see. And World Series, I'll honest to God be surprised if anybody actually watches you. You got no business trying to compete. You got no business trying to compete with the top two organizations right now. If you want to get, first off, you don't book too many shows. Then on top of that, nobody, like, I don't know people who go out of their way to watch MSNBC and then nonetheless to watch a bunch of nobodies. Bellator, at least with the tournaments, I respect the tournaments because that way it's no politics as to who should get the who should get the next title shot. But then again, I understand in UFC why they do that, because Dana White needs to do what sells, and right now Mark Hunt, he's selling, but he's getting old. We'll see what happens. I'm done. God bless.